Okay, let me do a quick mic check. Hey, what do you say, G-Dog? Can somebody verify if they can actually hear me on this? I've got a weird speaker set up between my laptop, PS4, and everything else, so I'm not getting sound. Okay, thanks, man. Okay, guys. This is something we're going to start doing on a regular basis. Usually, we'll be doing this on TGC After Dark with other courses. I'm going to do two this afternoon that were specifically requested by the designers. The first I'm going to do is going to be Dogma, and let me pull back up. Da-da-da-da-da. Wow, I've got a lot of messages. Oh, there we go. By JK134807. And he had specifically asked me to kind of give a run through his course. So in doing this, I always want to preface this by saying that there are certain technical things that I can point out that everybody's going to agree on, but when we start looking at other things as far as planting and some things like that, I just want to point out that much of that is subjective, whether it's coming from me or anybody else. I have certain preferences just like anybody else does. I am going to comment on stuff like that, but it doesn't make what you have right or wrong. It's just a different point of view. You can take it for what it's worth. But other than that, we'll give this course a look. We've got some guys over here in the peanut gallery to the right that you'll be able to see their feed on the streams when this is replayed. I'll point some of their comments out as we go along. So without further ado, let's play the Dogma Golf Club. And while this is loading up, I want to give a shout out to everybody over on the East Coast right now, from Miami on up through North Carolina. Be careful, guys. These hurricanes are nothing to play with. We're going through them over here at my house quite a bit, and this one's going to be packing a punch. So you guys stay safe. Anyway, what do you say, Eddie? So far, so good. I should continue my game because I was chewing the course up before. I think I was 500 through 8 holes. So now I'm going to come up and start playing and play like crap. That's what happens when I start trying to stream. So, opening up here. There's going to be a couple things I'm going to point out. One of which is just going to be the color palette on this. Nothing wrong with what you have if that's what you like, but to be quite honest, I tend to like a little bit different color setup than this. It comes out just a little bit jarring to the eye. If you were to change this to like a 13 color, same thing on your first cut, make both those 13, go 6 on your inner and your green, on your fairways and greens, probably give you a little bit nicer look with what you're going for here. But that's one of those subjective things I was telling you about. One thing that's borderline subjective that I wanted to point out right this. It's the first thing that just really stuck out to me as a designer whenever I was playing through. I like your ditch that you have here. This is something you actually will see on golf courses. Your plants that you put in here, you change your sizes a little bit and rotate your plants around so you don't get that really stark edge that you see right there. I mean, it's very obvious that all those plants are the same size, all those plants are facing the exact same way and everything else. You just give it a little bit more of a natural look if you'll spin those plants around and change their sizes. And a lot of times what you can do is come through with several that are larger in different areas, and then come back with some that are smaller, and just give it a, like I said, it's just a more natural look. So the winds aren't too bad for this one, so it's going to be nice for a change. Nice long par 4 to open this one up with. You guys are going to have to excuse me. I just got a brand new controller for my PS4, so trying to break it in, it does play a little bit different than my old one did. So it's a touchy little bugger. Not too bad sculpting here on the front or on the green in the fairway, so the contouring isn't bad on that. Could be a little bit smoother, but that's just a personal taste thing. Nothing wrong at all with what you have there. The one thing you have to be careful when you're doing your greens like this, though, is that you're going to limit, if you're just using this as a standalone course with no intentions of multi-pinning, it's not a problem. But this one could be problematic when you go to multi-pin. You've got your one pin there. I'm assuming you've got an area right here that you're looking at. That's a little bit harder to pull off, even with medium firm settings, because you got a 180-yard shot coming in here, so you're not leaving players really a way to play the hole, because you would have two front pin locations that some people are going to find pretty frustrating, especially with this right here to the side. You can't miss to the right on a pin location right there. You're gone. You're down here somewhere. I guess you could have one back here at the back, but kind of the same thing. With that distance, you're limiting what they can do. Lesser of two evils, because then they're going to be laying up to about right in here, have an ugly putt and everything else. So a little bit gentler touch on your sculpting on your greens for this particular one. Sorry, 1 second, guys. I'm getting emails, but okay. So what we got? 184 plus 2, so we're gonna be going about 186. 5-mile-an-hour crosswind. Tell you what, we're gonna leave it 181. Just take a little bit of steam off that thing. Let's see if I can hit a straight shot. At this point, see if I can even get the backswing to take. Did I mention it was a new controller? I can live with that one. So now we can actually pull back and get a good look at the green. Well, the old one was pretty bad, man. The old one was so loose that there was just no controlling it. I wore it out on FIFA. Between FIFA 15 and FIFA 16, I brutalized that controller, and I kept on just trying to make it work because it had a certain slot, and it still has it on my backswing that if I find it, it sets up for a perfect straight up and down, but on my upswing, that joystick on it is just so loose that it just doesn't work. You never know where the ball's going to go, so... I like the idea that you have on the contouring on this, and it would work a lot better if you didn't have this yellow right here in this area. If you smooth that out just a little bit, you can still have the green falling off in that direction, but it's just a straight down. And this right here will not stop that roll. It's going to slow it down just enough to hit this one right here. So that's really unpinnable. It really just eliminates the entire right half side of your green. So just something to think about. So this is actually a pretty neat little hole. You got to be careful on this. I don't mind it every once in a while, but some guys will get irritated with these blind tee shots when you hide your bunkers over there. It's not that big of a deal for those of us that play the Mortal Tour, but for guys that play no aids and everything, they can't see that, and sometimes kind of bugs them. And just kind of a general rule, even in real life golf courses, that you can have these style bunkers here and there, just don't overdo it. More times than not, you want at least a little bit, even a sliver of a bunker showing to let people know that it's actually there. This I had mixed feelings on. Once again, it's an aesthetic thing. You can definitely, on the just the contouring you have right here with your bunker and everything else, this could be smoothed out and made it to look a lot better. What I personally end up doing is flattening these areas right here down into the ground while keeping your hill and everything here, and it just gives you a nice depression into the side of it. And you see that on a lot of the courses down here in the southeast. Now, that being said, you kind of have to make a decision here for this to look correct. Either flatten this side out and let this be your elevated side, or leave your green and everything elevated over here and flatten this out. What you've got going right now just kind of looks a little bit odd. You've also got a little bit of your first cut cutting into your bunker right there. It's a preference thing only, but I tend to like to see that band of heavy rough come around there if you're going to do it. If you're going to use your first cut or your light rough around your bunkers, then use it around your bunkers. Do it around the entire thing. If you're trying to set them off a little bit and just let that light rough come up to the outside edge of your bunker, that's fine. It's just an attention to detail thing right there. And I know it sounds like I'm nitpicking. I'm not trying to sound that way, but if somebody messages me and asks for a critique, then this is what you get. But anyway, the main point on this one right here is that you need one or the other side on this more flat terrain. It just kind of looks a little bit out of place right there with that. Personally, I would probably flatten this side of it out, and I would leave this hilled. I would smoothen that out. I'd take my soft round fuzzy brush and kind of smoothen that the gradient out on this hill, and then I would quit it. I wouldn't even worry about trying to do fingers on this bunker. I would add some curve to it and let it follow the natural line of my green right there and make it actually look like it fits, if that makes sense. So it's really just taking that bunker, knocking the fingers out, and just taking your bunker line and running it right up this line right here, and then cutting it back down this way and letting that be my bunker, and then coming back in and contouring it with a flat bottom with that gradient side hill lie on it. It's a pretty nice look when you do it. But decent sculpting on this bunker right here. Kind of the same thing. I would probably lower this outside edge just a little bit to make it not look like a sand ditch versus a bunker. So anyway, enough of my prattling on that. But like I said, if you ask, this is what you get. The main reason I don't have an issue with this bunker right here is it doesn't come into play for the most part. Not for most people. Yuck. I messed that one up, didn't I? That's what I was talking about, trying to get used to this. Trying to get my thumb on it, but... Let's see how bad this one bites me. I'm going to try to... There we go. Wow, okay. Here we go. I'll tell you what, I'll start missing 3-footers. That's bad. So that should have been 2 under. Instead, we're at 1 under. You guys may have to remind me to let the flyovers go over so you guys can kind of check out what's going on. That way we give a nice preview. So some pretty nice work on the sculpting he did around these bunkers right here. I like the way he has them recessed just a little bit. They fit the bunkers quite well. You see that style of bunker right there. You see a lot of that since Ryder Cup was played last weekend. A lot of people watched it. Hazeltine's kind of famous for these style bunkers where they're actually way above the ground. They don't necessarily sit in the ground as much as they sit above it, but they are contoured around it, so that's pretty nice. Same thing with your light rough right here. You just need to make a decision whether you're going to have it up against your bunker face or not. That's one of those things I would just change. Same thing up here on this one. It's I'm very big into continuity. That's a word that we're making famous around here, consistency in what you're doing. If you're going to do this, then do it. If not, then keep it the other way. So I'm not a big fan of just cutting, light rough right across the front of it when it's not anywhere else, but that's just a me thing. I haven't made a decision about the wall yet. I understand, making for eye candy and everything off of it. Honestly, it doesn't necessarily add much to what you're doing here, but I wouldn't say it's a distraction either. It's just one of those, it's there kind of deals. So you're going to be playing about 152 right there with the side wind. We're only 5 miles an hour. Ball's a little bit up above my feet, so I guess I'm going to approach this a different way. Oh, it only took me about 14 back swings to actually get the club to go back. So it's not really where I wanted to hit the ball on that, but like I said, the ball was above my feet, so I have no idea whether that means it's going to go 3 feet to the left or if it's going to go 40 feet to the left. But that's definitely, obviously, not the place to miss that shot. Hey, what do you say, Obi? I've got to get used to getting back on these fast greens like that. I just missed that 3-footer for the exact same reason. I keep on thinking these are the 145 greens I was just playing on before coming on here. And they're not. I'd have to look it back up to be honest. 1 second. It belongs to JK 134807. It's got some nice bones to it. He's got some good ideas on his holes, no doubt about it. So a lot of it is just going to be the refinement. The greens are where I tend to have the most problems on the course, and I'll point a lot of that out as we're kind of going through. I know he said that he wanted to, that he intended this to be a harder course. Okay, I can agree with that, but when you start looking at greens like this, you have to keep in mind that when you're looking at this, you've got red down to yellow, so you're counting this right here as a flat spot, or as green beads, and it's really not. It's still moving enough left to right that the natural flow of this is going to carry it right through that, onto this edge, and then down. And I mean, that ball, you can hit on that left edge and your ball's going to end up down here. So just something to think about. You can, you can leave that right there. That in itself isn't a problem, but you need to tame this up just a little bit. You can still keep a left to right flow going with it, but it's got to feel a little bit more natural than that. Kind of same thing over here. You just your landing area here is crazy small, which in of itself isn't a problem. But once you miss a little bit to the right here, I mean, it's just nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. And that's not the designer in me, that's the course scheduler in me bringing that up. So, I mean, realistically, I'm looking at playing my shot over here on the, on the fringe. I just got to make sure that I keep my ball left of the pin. You cannot miss this one right. Ooh, I did not think that ball was going to go that far. Wow, 6 yards of carry. I didn't even know it's an elevation change. I wasn't paying attention to it, but, well, here we go. Here we go. Ah. Yep, it's very hard to get close to that pin. And that's why I was saying that's a little bit of a problem issue. The greens need a little bit of touching up on this one. Oh, really? Really? What's funny is I played this in higher winds right before I'd started this twitch up, and the twitch server ended up going down, and I was 5 under through the first 8 holes on this one. Eagled this hole, oddly enough. Oh, I don't think I'll let the flyover go through this. Semi-church pews. Once again, nice contouring around these bunkers right here. I like the way he recessed them in. So that actually works quite well for me. Just need to be a little bit careful with your first cut on that. You can just bring it out and let it swing out here and then dip back in here and then back out. So you tend not to want it to brush right up against the front face of that bunker. And I'm not even going to comment on this because you probably know my opinion. I know why you've got it there. You're encouraging balls to run through that down into the bunker, but it's a tight enough landing area with any kind of wind. I don't think it needs a lot of encouragement, to be honest. I'm about to do my best impression of finding that bunker. Yeah, it definitely has an Oakmont feel. Now, to be honest, I haven't compared this to Oakmont to see if it was one that he used as inspiration on it, or if it's just some of the holes may have a similarity. So, got another ditch, kind of the same thing. Need to be changing your heights and spinning those plants around so it doesn't look like you just have the same plant planted over and over and over again. You may have actually done that, but from the naked eye, it still looks like you just ping, 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 went planting as fast as you could on those. So just take the time to make some smaller, some, yeah. So what I'm talking about right there, it's just too uniform. Shrink some of them, make some of them bigger, definitely spin them around at different angles. It gives it a more natural look. So obviously we're not going to reach that. They are actually firm greens, so Man, I don't even know if I'll clear that. Yeah, I should. Or not firm greens. I'm sorry, they're firm fairways. They're medium greens. Oddly enough, that's exactly what I did the last time I played this. Both times on this course is what I've done. Nice bunkers on the front right there. I like those. This isn't a bad looking hole. So this is completely just a aesthetic thing. I tend to like not having my creek banks be quite so uniform. Come back in with your round fuzzy, the flatten tool, make it a little bit larger, flatten some of those areas out and everything else, and let it look a little bit more like a creek bed around that area. There's a couple other brushes you can use to do it, but just not quite so uniform. That is if you're going for a natural look. So I keep making those comments, but part of it depends on what your vision is too. We'll take a look at the green complex. Like it's pretty tame back here in the back. Looks like you might have a little bit of yellow right in there, but same thing. You just have to be careful how you use red and yellow on a green because you can get some pretty nasty movement on a green without having red and yellow on it at all. Because when you start trying to pin this, if this gets picked for a tour and you start pinning this, you start limiting your areas really quick. And to be honest, you eventually cost yourself place because it becomes very frustrating to play. Then people aren't going to mess with it. Tough is good. Tough for the sake of being tough is not good. Oh crap! This is going to be one of those. I'm playing at 140. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to play this a little bit different. I actually don't like this shot. How wicked of a little putt is this? Ah, still missed it low. I should have given it just a little bit more speed on that, and that would have been okay. If you guys hear noises in the background, my wife is actually home today, so have her and a dog and all that kind of fun stuff. So the guy definitely has some nice concepts and interesting ideas for his holes. I actually really like the layout of this one. The only issue that I have on this one, not to be a broken record, is some of the green. So just gets a little bit too severe. This one right here is a good example. Technically for a tour, this is an illegal pin. This 9-hole box we have right here. The pin that the grid box sits in, plus one grid box in any direction, we try to have free from any yellow or red. This one I'd probably let slide. This one I'd probably have to have redone, just because of what it does for the entire pin. This has a very nasty effect right here of feeding this ball all the way down here, even with it being a short shot. I think this is one of those things that when you're in the designer and you're building these, sometimes you don't take in consideration the wind and how it affects, but you get a 12-mile-an-hour crosswind, especially left to right, you're dead on this hole. Right to left would make it work, but even that, it makes it a very tricky little shot. And of course, Obi, Griff and Ray says, I like that pin personally. Now, granted, he's better than 95% of the rest of us, so... I've got to try to drop that one short. Yep. It was just shy of doing what I wanted it to do. That makes me sad. Yeah. Well, they are on this side. Griffin said at least the red, yellow slopes are feeding into the hole. They are on this side. I agree. And that's actually where I was trying to land the ball. I was actually trying to bring it right in here and just kind of let it catch and, flow down to this area. The problem is with any kind of wind that you'd have, if your ball ends up right here, it's gone. I mean, it's just going to keep trickling and trickling and trickling and trickling. You probably get to stop right in here just by looking at the level. You might get to stop right in there, but if you actually somehow get carried in this area and it feeds back towards here, it's going, gone. I mean, it's going to be down in here somewhere. So... get in that hole. I really thought that was going in. I would have played it to be going in. Yeah, so let me just reiterate. A lot of these are just my own personal aesthetics. Now, some things, like I said, I mentioned on with pins and greens and everything else as a scheduler, they're going to be things that I comment on, and this is one of those holes. Played this a couple of times, just not a big fan of the way this is laid out, and I'll tell you why. You've got 181 yards. So just with that alone, on medium firmness, you've got a restricted area. You have to allow for at least a little bit of rollout. If your goal is to make somebody play the ball right in here, then you succeeded. Trying to let anybody go at the hole anywhere from here in, it's just tough. And I don't necessarily have a problem with it in and of itself. I'm definitely one of those people that does not believe that every hole has to be a birdie hole. But sometimes they have to make sense. So you've got your hazard here fronted up. Okay, that in and of itself is fine. This is where my problem with this hole is, right here. And it's the back end and the way that this is done. Just too severe. If you wanted to run off the back, that's fine. Make it slight and flatten this out some. Having this be what it is down here to where then when they come back with the pitch shot, I mean, where's your landing area on this? You technically, now granted, there are some people that are so good at this game, they can pull this off 100% of the time. Most people don't. Most people are going to have to play some kind of shot back here with expecting it to come back a little bit. And when you do that, you lose the ball again. So I understand not wanting to give up an automatic par on a hole. I'm not crazy about forcing an automatic birdie. And so that's pretty severe. And there we go. So I guess your only play is to club down and play it to the middle of the green. Yeah, that I would say. If it's definitely geared towards PGA, then you could have a strong case for it. Those guys are going to handle it a little bit different than the rest of us are. So I'm going to do an example. I actually normally wouldn't play this shot this way, but this is how a lot of people are going to play this shot. Personally, I tend to use a flop like that at full. I wish there's a way for me to reset it and show a few different shots on it, but usually I'll use that same flop shot and not take anything off of it and just control it with my swing. And even that can be risky, but you don't get the same spin out that a lot of people play for on it. But it's just not an easy shot. That was just a little bit too far left. True. I could have done that. I never think about that when I'm doing this. Then G-Dog says, yeah, the field flop. Less backspin, but a bit tougher to dial down the distance. Exactly. I usually don't play any kind of loft on my shots like that for that very reason. You can't really control the spin, so I've just got different flop shots I use. Like there's times on that exact same shot I'd actually go up to the 35 yard. I go up a club and this control it with 50% backswing on that. That way it kind of deadens it out. You don't get nearly the backspin on it. So, but there are a lot of people that will try to control that shot using a little bit of loft on a flop, and that's what happens. Where I landed the ball was about where you need to land it in order to get the backspin to come back towards the hole, and hopefully not running too far past it. But obviously it's already into the ditch from that side. So, really nice long finishing hole to the front nine right here. Nice hilling around these bunkers. I actually really like that. Still not a fan of the first cut, but I've already said that a few times, so I won't repeat it again. Nice tight landing area right here, that's for sure. Yep, I agree, G-Dog. Nice bunkers on this hole. They were very well done. So since I'm here sitting here looking at it, I'll just point this out one time. I talked about this quite a bit in the commentaries I did for the Summer Showdown. When you use red and yellow like this, tearing off a green, you're better off limiting that to 3 rows of grid blocks. So if your red was from here to here, it actually works quite well, especially if this is flattened out and it all up here, where it actually tears it off. This right here, if you have a pin location up here in this area and it doesn't make it up there, I mean, it's just a brutal play. This right here is what I'm talking about. This works. From a tiered standpoint, what you've done right here, going down to this area, works well. But this is just a little bit long. So, especially when given that you've got it up here too, you can just see it looking from the side. You've got like another really long slope coming down through there. So, some of that is just cleaning it up and getting used to it. Like I said, I know it sounds like I'm nitpicking or being mean. I'm not. I'm just pointing out things that go along. I try to give good as well as bad. Yeah, even G-Dog says, yeah, either tier or don't tier. And that's what that looks like. When I see this most common, it's from people having a tier up here and having a tier down here and then taking the round fuzzy brush, widening it out, and just trying to connect them and running it straight across there. That's usually what it looks like. But on this one, you need to have a flat area running up to here, your tier, and then a flatter area up here. So that makes sense, but just leaving it long and hanging like that tends to annoy the hell out of players. And it's not something you're really going to see often on a real course either. Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of concerns with it, to be honest. Whether it'll stop, if you end up at the bottom of it. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways that could play. So just in being able to control the ball a little bit and control what you want the players to be able to do on your greens, I would just personally get rid of that. So. Woo, boy, I shanked that putt. Yeah, that's what I was talking about in the beginning. Or just a little bit lighter hand on your greens, man, would really help set this off. So I'm curious to see what everybody has to say about this one. Gonna pre-warn you on this one here, guy. You're about to catch some hell. So this doesn't work. um, Not really in any way. Your fairway does. You got a nice shape to your fairway. Bunkers look good on the side of it, but you kind of give everybody a WTF moment when they look at your green. Exactly. G-Dog says, what the hell is that? Well, there you go. You lose a little bit on this one because there's just really nothing to play the ball with here. With yellow and red and everything else around it, yeah, this is a no-go, guy. I appreciate the effort on this one, but Yep. And that could be it. I've only played up to the front nine myself on these, so. Yeah. Okay, that'd explain it. I went through the front nine the first time I played it, right when the Twitch crashed the first time, and played it there. So that'll kind of wrap this one up. Off to a good start with it. Just a couple of things I pointed out. Like I said, the greens just a little bit more smoothing, man. Make them flow just a little bit differently than what you have. You have some good ideas with them. It's just in the refinement. Um, Now, personally, from an aesthetic standpoint, as a designer, I'm not as crazy about the color palette, but that's just me. I think the darker colors would actually look a little bit better, and especially once you change the lighting on it a little bit, it wouldn't look so neon glowish between your fairways and your heavy rough. That's just me. Um, Other than that, your planting, where you've got your weeds and everything, your ditches, I'd definitely redo those to the extent of changing the sizes of them as well as rotating them so it looks a little bit more natural. It just doesn't look like it everything was thrown in there, and that's something you're going to hear from almost every designer. It's going to stick out like a sore thumb to them. But other than that, I think you're off to a really good start. You know, it should be a fun course to play when you get done with it. So other than that, I'm going to end this broadcast, guys, and I will be right back. I'm going to go ahead and archive this one really quick and go ahead and load it up into his private message so that he can kind of view it there, and I will be right back, and I will do the next course. Griffin said, difficulty didn't look too far off to me if you want a Pro Tour event. Yeah, I mean, it's there. It's really in the greens. Everything else about it with the fairways and where actually everything, the distance and everything, I think it was pretty adaptable to almost any tour. The greens were the only thing that was a little bit wonky to me, and even if it was a pro tour, even if I was designing for a pro tour, it's probably decisions I would make on a green because it just doesn't have a natural feel to it. It looks like they were specifically sculpted to be hard for the sake of hard. And that's something that it's my own little pet peeve. Everybody that watches me do these kind of commentaries hears me say it. A tough course, you know, done well is great. We all like them, you know. I like the challenge and everything else, but hard for the sake of hard, it feels forced, and that's the best way to describe some of the greens. They just felt a little forced. Um, you know, smooth them out a little bit. You're still going to get the movement that you want on them. You can still make them hard as hell to putt. Um, but without having to make them feel forced or tricked out in any kind of way. So, I mean, that's just me. So, other than that, guys, I will be right back.